I'm going to make this point to you before we bring on Gary Cobb here. And Armando Salguero from Outkick will be with us at 5:30. And I'm going to say this to you. If you think you're going to play that zone coverage against the Miami Dolphins, you better start ringing up prop bets because they're going to hang 500 yards on you. And they're going to put a 50 burger on you. I'll tell you this coaching on that offensive side is horrific. It's horrific. Let's bring in Gary Cobb from Fox 29. Gary, I'm going to start this off by doing this. And I want maybe because you as a 10-plus year guy probably will have a better answer than Nick Sirianni will at his press conference tomorrow. So explain this. You got a 17-12 lead. You're 134. The Jets have no timeouts in the ball game. You have a litany of injuries. Why don't you just run the clock out, get 2 first downs, end the ball game, get on the bus, go down 95 and go home and get ready for Miami? Instead, you're throwing the ball. And on top of that, Gary, you're throwing the ball 45 times against a team that's been struggling. Am I wrong when I say the coaches really didn't help Jalen Hurts and that football team out?
I mean, I don't understand, especially the difficulty that that they were having, stopping the run. I mean, coming into the game, they couldn't stop the run. But the Eagles just throwing the ball every play. I mean, really, they threw the ball over 50 times because a lot of his scrambles, they were passing plays. So, but it just seems like most of the offensive coordinators nowadays, they're pass happy. They really would like to throw the ball every play, but they clearly they didn't help things. Jalen was struggling. They weren't helping things because the way a quarterback is. Even though that first interception really wasn't his fault, a quarterback's not sitting easy when he throws a pick. He throws a pick, and you can see he was kind of struggling. And just to have him throw the ball that many times, it just it doesn't make any sense. But Nick, down in his heart, when Nick lays in the bed at night, guys dream about stuff. Nick dreams about passing. He was a wide receiver coach. He wants to throw the ball. The offensive coordinator was a quarterback. These guys want to throw the ball, and times, they get away from the fact that here you got Lane Johnson go down. You can't be throwing the ball all the time. You got a backup right tackle, and they were beating him quite a bit. And these guys just love to throw the ball, and it's just too much, and it cost them. I mean, we all knew that they were going to, the way they were playing, they're not playing their best football. You knew this is going to catch up with them, and that's the game it caught up with them. Could have caught up with one of the other games earlier in the season, but this is where they caught up with them. But I agree that they're just throwing the ball too much.
How about this, Gary? I hadn't thought about it until right now. But to me, when I think of Brian Johnson, and I throw these numbers at you here, Dak Prescott, 160 attempts, 111. This is with 5 games, 1061 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks, 69.4 completion percentage, 87.5. Then you look at Hurts, 6 games, 213, 141, 15, 7 touchdowns, 7 INTs, 66.2. Brian Johnson was the offensive coordinator at Mississippi State, and he coached Dak Prescott. Boy, it surely seems that Brian Johnson is coaching Jalen Hurts like Dak Prescott. Because they're pretty much having similar years. Am I wrong am I off base when I'm saying? Because, Gary, they ran the ball. They stopped running the ball in the second half.
Yeah.
They got away completely from it. Do you think that, it just looks at Brian Johnson, the way that he thinks coaching the RPO kind of guy, or they want him to look like Dak.
Yeah.
He looks more like Dak right now than he did Jalen of a year ago.
Well, they do like the RPOs. They love to run those RPOs, and teams have done a good job against that. I mean, that's clearly they have not been as strong in that area as they were. I mean, when they run the ball, they basically were handing the ball off and letting the running back run and getting that offensive line, letting them take over the game. That's when they've had success running on the ground. Jalen hasn't had, he had the one game where he really took off, and those were scrambles. I mean,
Rams.
Really he had some big runs on the scrambles and everything. But for the most part, they have not had he's not having a big year with the RPOs like he did last year, because teams have made adjustments. And they still have not made, the solid adjustments to that. You've seen some big plays. I mean, AJ has been consistent, but I don't see anywhere else where you say you've really seen consistency of
You think
success
he's regressing? You think he's regressing, Gary?
Jalen?
Yes.
I know confidence-wise he is. You can see he doesn't have the confidence. And I think he's given up on plays early where he pulls that ball down. He starts looking at the line. You're starting to see that. So I think that clearly there has been, there definitely has been some regression there with regards to, his vision, because once you bring your eyes down, it doesn't matter who's open out there. You can't see them. So, and then, he starts relying on his legs more. That's what he was in the progress of, relying less on the legs, where he could just stand in there. But I just don't see the confidence,
Don't you see a lot of 2021 rolling right, feeding one guy?
That's right.
It just looks a little bit like 21 again, right?
That's what I see. When he's taking off more. He doesn't have the confidence, like I said, to just stand in there and just operate from that pocket, which is what he's been trying to progress into. And I saw some of the comments that Seth was making about the black quarterback and everything. But it's not just the black quarterback. Look at Steve Young. Steve Young was in Tampa. Steve was running using his legs.
Yep.
And
in San Francisco.
Yeah, but at San Francisco, though, he learned more. And so he became to where, it's almost he's out there with a uniform totally clean because he hasn't run, he hasn't been tackled. He's just operating from the pocket, see, relying on that. And then still knowing, though, I got the wheels still here if I need them. But I'm gonna let the guys run their routes. And I'm going to try every game to where I'm going to give them a chance. And you get open, that ball's coming at you, and you get where you rely on your legs less. And, Steve Young grew into that. And, I saw it with Randall Cunningham as well. I mean, Randall grew into it, a pocket passer.
But I never realized it, Gary, until Seth pointed it out that offensive coordinators didn't develop the black quarterback more. They relied more on, again, the stereotype of athleticism, and said, well, shit, I'm just going to run it if I have to, because these other guys, they don't want to run it. And to me, it's kind of a stereotype because, but you know what? If you think about it, that's why Moon had to go to Canada, because they wanted to coach him a different way. And he didn't want to play that way. And Canada throws the ball all over the yard. Yeah. And if it wasn't for Canada, Warren Moon's not a Hall of Fame NFL guy. Canada did more for Moon than any coach did. Even Ken Herrick.
But I will say, like I said, it's the athletic quarterback, which I've said, like Young would be in there. But these guys, where it is a tendency where if you got that ability.
Josh Allen.
That's right. Well, he's trying to do too much, but if you got a guy that's athletic and he knows he can always go that way, they got the temptation to not have the growth that you want to have. But I will say this, that Jalen has been pushing himself that way. He's been smart enough to know, look, you're just relying on your wheels. You know, you're not going to last for so long. And all the times you're going to be taking shots, you know, if you're running the ball all the time. And so you want to get to where you only go to pulling that ball down when you have to. Don't be doing it prematurely. Where you don't have pressure, you're imagining pressure. You know, wait till you have pressure and then you pull it down and take off. But don't do it as a thing where you do not go through your, you know, first, second, third option. You go ahead and you go through that every time to get you in the discipline to where you are reading the coverage, you know, and not just relying on those wheels.
Do you think the offensive coaches panicked after Lane went out? That's why they abandoned the running attack, because it just seemed to me there was more. I mean, all of a sudden it elevated. They went away from the run. You know what's crazy, Gary? I mean,
especially they had a lead. Look at all the time they had a lead. They had a big lead.
The Jets must have had the lead 7 minutes of that game.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm watching the game and I'm like, that 19-play drive.
Yeah.
Perfectly scripted. Swift is involved. They threw the ball to Goddard. Jalen's completing passes. They drove right down the field. And you know what it seemed? You remember that old Bill Walsh sheet? Bill had the first 22. Remember, everyone knew that the 49ers, he was like the first guy. And then what made Bill so good was then he went to the second sheet was in-game adjustments. He would be in situational play calling. And the first one would be here, and the second one would – I've talked to him about it. It just seems once they get off script, they get lost in games.
You know, that does seem that to be happening. And so that's where Nick has to be. You know, he should be able to stand back there where he's looking at it. He's seen what they've run, okay? And then he could almost come in there and start saying, hey, okay, now we had success with this. Now we don't want to get away from this. You know, but, you know, a team that has run the ball so well against a team that, I mean, amazingly, I don't see how it's happened, but they weren't good against the run. They're coming in, they're giving up like 170-some yards on the ground they're giving up. And you don't run the ball against them. You know, that is now you can't do that. You can't do that. Now that is getting where you're, I guess, gunslinger happy or whatever you want to call it, where you want to throw the ball all the time against a team that, despite all the good defensive players you see on the Jets, they're not good stopping the run. So why don't you run the ball against them? You run the ball, you go home. You got that lead. You know.
What I don't get, Gary, you look at this, you look at the numbers. The Jets beat the Eagles running only 59 plays.
Man.
I mean, I tried telling people, do you understand that's like 2 series a quarter?
Yeah.
And you got beat because those coaches and turnovers. I don't know why they're trying to that's not the guy they gave $50 million to. That's not the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems to be a number one priority for that. I mean, this goes back to Doug, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They want a high. Is it? Hey, by the way, that leads me to this. Is it too much AJ?
Well, yeah. I mean, I could see where you could say that. The last number of games, they're definitely giving them the ball a lot. You had Devontae have the big drops. You know, that's
3 of them.
But clearly, I mean, since he went off, they've been feeding AJ that ball. Come on. He's getting the ball. I mean, he's been averaging like 130 yards a game. Every game, AJ's getting the ball a lot. But, you know, when you sit back there and look at this game where you got a lead, where they were up 14-3, and you don't score the rest of that game.
Shut out in the second half.
Come on. That is, I mean, you cannot do that. And
the Jets.
I know the Jets. Yeah, that's and you talk about it. I mean, their offense didn't really do anything special.
Hey, you know what? You know what really is the most obnoxious thing about the Eagle coaches is that, let's just say you do this on that late with 1:30 left in the game, Gary, and you're up 17-12, and you know you have Zach Wilson and not Aaron Rodgers on the other side. Even if you take where you took too much time and they penalize you, you punt the ball. Do you really think Zach Wilson is going to go down the field with no timeouts, 80 yards with 1:15 left in the game.
Now, in fairness, now it was 14-12. See, it wasn't 17, it was 14-12.
Okay, 14-12.
Yeah, so they
you
needed
really
a field
think
goal.
Zach Wilson's going down that field 80 yards with 1:14 and no timeouts?
No, he's not going to do that. No, you know he's not going to do that, and that's why it was supposed to be such a walkover in this game, because of Zach Wilson. It wasn't because of the rest of their team. It was because of this young kid, Zach Wilson, and he didn't do anything special. He didn't do anything special in the game, but the Eagles, they gave him the game, the turnovers. I mean, you can't turn the ball over, and win. You're not going to win in the NFL if you're turning the ball over. And why wouldn't you run the football more? I bet you they're having a talk about that right now. They got to run the football more. Come on, you got that offensive line. What good is it having them if you don't go ahead and say, hey, fellas, you get them over on the sideline, hey, look, we got a lead.
Okay, excuse me. It wasn't 80 yards I had to go. He wasn't going 8 yards with 1:14. Like that mattered with Zach Wilson, that he was going to go. He wasn't going 8 yards. This is his numbers in the game.
Yeah.
He had 186 yards in the ball game. Yeah. You really think that guy's going 8 yards with 1:14 and no timeouts left in the fourth? Not happening.
There's no way it's happening. And that's why, they really kind of played into it. And they got to think back that they're getting away from who they are.
Completely.
That's what they did in that game. I mean, for them not to run the football against them, they got a good team. But they were giving up like 100, I think it was about 160, 170 yards a game rushing. And you don't run the ball against them.
And get this, Zach Wilson had the worst passing offense entering that game in the league. He was 32nd ranked. And he's going 8 yards with 1:14 to beat him instead of punting the ball. Talk about moronic.
That's right.
This Miami game, how about this stat coming into this thing? Miami's number 1 in passing. But here's the other thing, Gary. Let me get this number, which I can't think I remember this number since maybe the team, the St. Louis Cardinal team, when they had Marshall Faulk and those guys. They're running the ball 189 yards a game, and they're number 1 in running the ball. They're number 1 in passing the ball, and they're number 3 in sacks coming into this game. Now, that's who the Dolphins are.
Yeah, I could see that because that they get a lead. Teams are having to throw the ball a lot. They got the guys can peel put their ears back and just come flying at the snap of the ball. So they're going to get sacks. So you can see where that plays into all of that, man. And the thing is, boy, they could light you up quick, So it's going to be interesting. I don't think, the way the Eagles want to throw the ball so much, I guess they want to get in a shootout. But the Eagles,
I don't want to get in a shootout with the Dolphins.
No, they don't need to get in a shootout with them. But the way they're acting, it's like they want to throw the ball every play, because how could you throw the ball? They should have to have an explanation for that. How could you throw the ball that much against this team where from all the game you're in the lead and you're throwing the ball when you guys always usually rely on your offensive line. You got Lane Johnson goes down. You don't want to throw the ball that much. Come on, what are you doing?
So wait, they threw the ball after Lane goes down. They threw the ball more.
Threw the ball more. That makes no sense.
Hey, what do you think Nick Laiarani's going to say tomorrow at the podium when he gets there? Brian Johnson's calling a great game, and that was my call. Well, that's a moronic call then.
Yeah.
If you're making those decisions. Gary, you tell me if you think that this went on Saturday night and they took the bait. And we were talking about this earlier. So they found out that both corners were out for the Jets.
Yes.
So you know what the coordinator, Brian Johnson, and Nick Sirianni did? They sat there and they go, since they're giving up so much in the run, that's a given.
Yeah.
And what they did eating pizza on a Saturday night, getting ready for that game, they decided that was going to be the focal point and the attack point was that they were going to go after those corners. So before they even got into the game, Gary, they predetermined on what they were going to do. Coordinators don't do that. They wait to see what coaches do to adjust when you have losses like that, like Robert Saleh did. Okay? Yeah. You wait and see how they're going to adjust. He did. He brought pressure. They only had 2 sacks. And do you know Jalen Hurts had the most pressure of any Eagle quarterback since 2017 with 20 pressures in that game?
Is that so?
20.
Wow.
It felt like 18 sacks.
Yeah, it did seem like he had more sacks. And they got out there with 2, boy. Well, you got to give them credit. I mean, it looked like he was running for his life. You think the coaches
took the bait?
I think they definitely took the bait. And I think what I know they played they played a lot of zone too. They played a lot of zone. They played a lot of zone because I heard the guy that made the interception.
Yeah, Adams.
He said that he went up and showed blitz, and he said they told him during the timeout, you go up there, show blitz, he's gonna throw the ball right to you. Come back out of there, and that's what happened.
Here's a quote, Gary. Tony Adams says the Jets coach has said in the timeout, if you show blitz, he'll throw the pick, and it happened the next play.
I know Jalen's not happy reading that because that's the kind of thing, boy. Really,
I mean, I wish he could pick me lottery tickets like that. I mean, that's the kind of shit where, you know what? That's why that coach at the Jets is saying they embarrassed him because that's embarrassing.
That's embarrassing.
A coach calls a timeout, Gary.
Yeah.
And he goes, show blitz, he's going to throw the pick to you. And it happens.
That's something that keeps you up at night. I know Jalen. Jalen reads that, boy. Well, I tell you what, that's gonna put some fuel on his fire, man. Because that's insulting. That's saying that you're basically like a college quarterback. That's what he's saying to you. I mean, that's what he's saying. You know how insulting
completely.
that is.
That's embarrassing.
That's saying you're a bush leaguer. Where we can just go ahead and bait you, and we know and boom, and you throw the ball to him. I mean,
Eagles
I know
fans in here don't believe that he said it. Tony Adams. There's quotes of it. He said, and there's actually sound on it.
That's right.
That he said that in the timeout they said that if
show him that blitz look, step up in there, show him the blitz,
he'll throw the pick,
and he's gonna throw it right to you, and then boom, go out and do it, boy. I tell you, boy, when Jalen hears that now, that that's going. Oh, man. He's not going to like hearing that.
If you're the coaches, aren't you embarrassed too for even calling it?
You definitely got to be. You got to. Well, they know they did not do a good job. They got to know they didn't do a good job because when somebody comes there and goes, do you realize you guys were leading that whole game, and these guys can't stop the run, and you don't run the ball on a team. The Eagles. The thing about them is they're supposed to do both well, where they throw the ball and they can run the ball. But when they want to, they go, look, we got bad news for you guys. We're running the ball the rest of the game. Hey, no sacks. You guys aren't getting these more sacks, okay? No sacks today. We're running the ball on you guys. So you just go. I just go and tell your coach that. Let him know because the party's over.
Man, I'll tell you what. If you're an offensive coach in there and you're so predictable like that, I just want to say this last thing in closing here, Gary. So that whole sequence to me was kind of a microcosm of the entire game plus the turnovers and the injuries. But I will say this. When does it get to a point when Nick Sirianni overrules a play or even Jalen overrules a play? You see, Jalen is such a well-coached kid. He respects coaching. Yeah. But when does it get to a point in his career where he fires back at something and says, that's a shitty play call, man.
That's right.
We're gonna take a timeout or we're not, I'm gonna audible out of that. Where was Sirianni's authority? Yeah. I mean, it just seems to me the whole chain of events and the chain of command. Who's making that call like that?
I guess it was Brian Johnson that he made the call, but
don't you overrule that though if you're Nick?
Nick should come in there. Come on. You're putting it all on the line there Because, you're right from the standpoint. You punt the ball to them. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Kid ain't marching the length of the field.
32nd worst offense. He ain't going 8 yards.
But, they just got away from what they've been known for, which is being able to run the football, and then they throw it when you want to, rather than you're going to make us throw the ball. Come on. That's really frustrating, and they better not do that against Miami. Better not do that against Miami, where you're going to just try to get in a shootout with them, rather than run the ball, man.
Hey, man, I'm going to say this to you. That Miami team might put a 50 burger on you. You want to go to back and forth with you. You'll think that's arena football, Gary.
Hey, if they put 50 up there, stuff's going to start getting real hot here in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
Because it'll start heating up already after that one loss.
Because then you got the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Bills on the flip side of that, and the Commanders.
Man.
And the Commanders seemingly always know what the recipe is on the menu when it's Philly.
This thing could get very interesting, boy. I tell you, it doesn't take long.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A loss like that to the Jets for the first time in franchise history.
Woo.
Man, that's got to hurt. Gary, thank you, my friend.
Take it easy. That was ugly.
That was ugly. That was ugly for sure, man. Don't forget, catch my friend Garry Cobb on Fox 29 in Philadelphia. Does a great job there covering the National Football League and covering the Philadelphia Eagles. We really appreciate it. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect